Welcome to the Friday Council, a podcast exploring modern life and the human condition. Join us each week for a new conversation. This is the Friday Council. Welcome back to another episode of the Friday Council podcast. Today, we are recording on a Thursday. Sorry to let you all down.
Thursday Council
today. My name's Nav. I've got Daniel in front of me and David.
Hello.
Daniel.
Yes, I am David.
So, do you want to, lead us in what we're going on.
All right.
Going to talk about today.
Today is a day kind of paying homage to the inception of this podcast. We're going in kind of a review / reflection episode. We don't know where this is exactly going to end up, but this is kind of how the podcast started, with just us yarning about or trying to flex our mental capabilities on each other. And we're like, we should start a podcast, bro. And we did. And so here we are now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you had a thing that you were mentioning earlier in the week, just I want to bring up, was the concept of duping.
Duping. Yeah, the dupe economy.
Duping. Yeah.
That was mildly interesting, yeah. It was about a rise in dupe products, which are not fake products. Like they use fashion as the main example. Like Gucci bags, a fake Gucci bag would be like explicitly, literally the same with like fake logo and everything. A dupe is just a reasonable, economically sensible alternative to luxury brands. It's not ripping off the brand. It's a completely different brand, but it's designed in the exact same way. And I actually saw something interesting. Lululemon, you know, the activewear, chicks activewear stuff. Yeah, they were doing a dupe trade-in. So you would bring in your dupe product, and they would give you one of their classic staple products as in an attempt to
remove
get
like
brand loyalty. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. So you're getting a deal, I suppose, but the articles I read seem to suggest that there's nothing that businesses could really do about it anyway.
My thing, with that is, for one, like if the product is so alike, is there a way of determining if it's actually fake? Or like, what's to say Lululemon, for example? Let's say it's basically the same material.
Yeah, it's leggings.
Yeah,
it's
the
like
composition of the leggings is pretty close to the same.
Yeah. What's
to stop them from, taking them in, cut the label off, we'll stitch our own one on there and just float it back out into the market?
Yeah. Well, it brings to mind like frugality and stuff. Inflation was mentioned as like a possible cause and people being more frugal and whatnot. But I think it's a good thing. I think it's fine. I got no qualms with it.
Okay. For just for context, have you ever owned anything less counterfeit or let's just say like knockoff?
Mm-hmm.
Or I can share. Like, I have before. I've had. I know you have. Yeah, but my mum, when she went to the Philippines, probably this would be close to 10 years ago, back when Beats by Dre were huge.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were taking over the headphone market, and my auntie over there found they called it A-grade replica, which to me, I've never actually owned a pair of Beats, so they sounded great to me.
Did they
like,
have the logo?
Yeah, they had the logo and everything. Cords, pretty much the packaging is like, from what I can understand, it's like basically exactly the same. And who am I to care, like, unless you have someone that's scoping you out and making sure, like, I know that's a thing with sneakers. I'm not really into the big sneaker, not a sneakerhead, but I know, some people easily could just call you out on it, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, if it's A-grade, and I mean, the Beats by Dre headphones literally sucked anyway. It was just like bass. It was like all bass. It was like a real child. Like, any adults that were real into Beats were not real.
It was.
I'm dubious of your like love for music in general. If you have Beats and you think Beats headphones are the best, that's like ridiculous.
They have great marketing.
Yeah,
we'll give them that.
Yeah,
but so that's my story. What about David?
Yeah, I've owned quite a bit of counterfeit stuff.
You sell some of it?
Yeah, I did. I've had multiple stints selling counterfeit stuff. When I was a lot younger, I wouldn't do that today.
Yeah.
But when I was at high school, I sold counterfeit skull candies. That's again headphones
for the hustle.
Yeah, they were pretty crap, to be fair. I think the audio quality was fine, but there's something wrong with the like jack on them. That would like kick out, be faulty on a bunch of them, so it stopped working real fast. But yeah, I got busted doing that by Trade Me. They just said,
Really?
don't do it again, sort of
Surprised
thing.
they cared. Well, okay.
Well, they have a reputation to uphold. They can't.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. They don't want to become like an AliExpress.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you guys reckon about brands and brand loyalty anyway? What are your opinions on that?
Well,
Is it all stupid? Like
I
brand
guess
loyalty?
it depends. Like if you're referring to fashion,
Hmm.
for example, like in this context, fashion or technology, whatever. I think that's easier to duplicate. You know, for the most part, like we know a lot of the clothing is made in China or Taiwan or Bangladesh or, you know, those countries where labor's cheaper to produce the clothing. But I mean, if you're dealing with, I wouldn't say it's easy to duplicate like manufacturing a car or something, power tool, you know, like something different. You probably those sort of big ticket items, you would want to probably take the time to scope out and make sure it's right. But then, and the same thing with like luxury watches,
Fashion.
Fashion, it's
Fashion
easier
and
to
brands go hand in hand because they're like it's like for looks. It's like for aesthetics.
Pretty much. Because I mean, like, I think I stumbled across a website. I was looking for a pair of shoes, and I didn't realize, but like they were selling articles of clothing $10,000 and above. I'm like, who is paying this much money for a pair of jeans with like rips in it when you can buy that here for $40-$50 cheap, or closer to 100, or you know, if they're decent quality pair of jeans. But then at the same time, I've had counterfeit clothes. It's a big thing in Asian countries, and I think also like what do you call it, Eastern Europe, where they have like markets where you can pretty much cop almost identical thing. There's a YouTuber, his name is Colin a Broadcast, and his premise is he goes around to like different markets in Asia, around the world basically, and tries to like haggle down the prices of he's like bartering with these guys because they're trying to rip off the tourists.
Is that his whole content?
Yeah,
he barters.
He goes.
That's cool.
He'll try and buy like fake Jordans and soccer jerseys or whatever, just all sorts of things. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, initially when I think about brands and brand loyalty, it's like off the bat it feels like just like represents everything like that's like easy to make fun of, and what I think is like the downsides of capitalism. But brands, that's when the brand is like selling you it because of status, where you can also have brand loyalty for something that's like genuine quality and recognized to be good, like Swan Dry or something. It's like a wholesome brand, and you buy it because it's more wholesome. And then there's brands that are like I don't know, Gucci or like McDonald's. McDonald's isn't a status flex. McDonald's definitely isn't a status flex.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Maybe it's something we I guess like in New Zealand, for example, would be quite brand loyal to like you're saying, Swan Dry or like Scalarup. We know like their gumboots, the red cap ones, or whatever you call them.
I think I know.
Yeah, it's like famous in New Zealand. I mean, you'd have like cultural things like L&P, for example, which is pineapple lumps. Those sort of things, I think we can attribute to like loyalty. It's like kind of your
in that way, like a country in general, or like a flag is kind of like a brand. Like New Zealand is a kind of a brand. Well, New Zealand is like the Clean Green New Zealand is almost a brand, trying to sell it as a wholesome brand, when in reality, like I've talked about before, first callback to the like environment episode, where it's definitely not as clean and green as we sell it as, and it's definitely not going.
I don't know if we're going to go on our first tangent here, but like in terms of New Zealand as a brand, it'd be interesting to know from an outside perspective of, I don't know, someone in China or US or whatever, what they would think of New Zealand. Like, would it be? I guess like we think of things like dairy and our tourism and like bungee jumping and that sort of thing, but I think if you think about
it's real hard to. I have a
Yeah.
friend from Brazil who says he like absolutely loves Christchurch specifically, and it's real
Okay.
hard to appreciate it in that respect. You're like, wow, really? Like you could drive down like Morehouse Ave, and you're like, this is just
This is
like
the
every other
worst, the
first world
pits.
city in the world.
yeah or Brougham Street.
But it's more about like the landscapes close by, like beaches and stuff. And he's a big BMXer, so apparently we have like pretty good skate parks in New Zealand. But yeah, it's kind of like when people talk about consciousness. It's like you can't look at it because you're in it. It's
Yeah,
kind of like
yeah,
a
yeah.
paradox, and so it's pretty hard to think about New Zealand as a brand. I'm not sure genuinely what other people think of New Zealand. Probably Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
Americans definitely think of Lord of the
true.
Rings.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true.
Some of them fully believe, not the adults, the children at least, which is not so much, I suppose, believed that we still cooked with over the fire. We
I
didn't
think
have electricity.
some adults do
Yeah,
believe
possibly.
Is that because of like
I told
the
them.
honey or?
Yeah. I was
Or-
spinning a yarn in America. I was like,
Right.
we still cook with over fire, and there's like sheep everywhere. It's like wandering around.
My uncle said that when he went to Russia, a bunch of Russians that he spoke to thought that we still lived in flax skirts and mud huts. So
That is
there
wicked.
there is
That
a
is-
percentage of adults out there that do think that New Zealand is
That's crazy.
That's
Something that's always fascinated me is it can't just be, it's obviously not just American, but I feel like America's kind of the worst lip to be like super isolationist in their like geography. Like they just like don't care, like couldn't care less.
Yeah.
They know there's like Europe, and I mean, growing up on the Call of Duty games, like everyone would obviously, all the Americans would assume you're European. Like, what are you, European?
Yeah.
Just the ignorance of other countries kind of astounds me. But I suppose, and because I feel like it's not just me and us. I feel like as a country, we obviously are required economically to be aware of other countries and what's going on.
Oh,
I suppose.
totally. Yeah.
But yeah, the ignorance is kind of funny. It's funny to spin yarns to foreign kids.
Well, yeah, they'll
No,
take
like-
your word for it.
They're like fully gripped.
I
I think
s-
you live in the Stone Age and like Lord of the Rings, like almost literal universe. Like,
Well,
whoa.
if you went, and if you saw someone in another, I wonder how many people would actually be able to pick out New Zealand on a map.
Yeah, not many. It's
Not
often left out, not
yeah,
drawn on maps.
I was gonna say
Mm.
there's a subreddit page for like maps without NZ. I think it's called.
Yeah, I know. I'm familiar.
It's like, oh,
There's a lot. There's many. Do you think that brand, that country as a brand thing will in the future is going to dissipate with like people, since we're obviously more connected than ever now? Do you reckon that will just be a relic of the past where people are ignorant of other countries like that? Especially if like what's WEF like takes a more prominent role and everyone's just like, that's the government, the world government.
I think it could go both ways. I think, I mean, when we think about like traveling, for example, just how much of an industry that is, and it was even, I guess, not scary maybe, but yeah, to think what would happen to the aviation industry after the COVID, when they were putting planes in the desert for storage, and you thought, okay, maybe if we start becoming more isolated with
What was that
not
about
travel.
the putting planes in the desert for storage? I don't know. I've never heard that.
yeah. So
It's
basically,
dry.
Oh, right.
yeah. There's a
Like the opposite of a fridge for food.
I don't know if they call it the boneyard, but
Yeah.
there's a desert, I think, in Nevada and
Might be Arizona.
or Arizona. Yeah, one of those two states where airlines were flying their spare planes that weren't being used around COVID time, and parking them up because they weren't being used.
Because it's dry, did you say? Just
Yeah.
like rust and
Yeah,
whatnot.
yeah. But yeah, to lead to my point, what
Random.
I was talking about,
Makes sense.
there's always going to be people that want to travel, and I think for New Zealand, if our brand or our image is tourism or Lord of the Ring, if you continue to be able to be profitable in those senses, people are still going to want to come to New
I
Zealand.
think it's another important reason that we don't change the name of the country,
Mm.
because that's it. New Zealand is a brand.
It's a hot-
Aotearoa
It's a hot
not a
take
brand.
there.
Yeah, it'd take. It's like why go through all that work of building up a new brand when you've already got one. Yeah, I like David Seymour said how in the talk we saw of his how he wants to almost recreate. He feels like New Zealand doesn't have an identity anymore. He wants to recreate or foster a sense of identity in New Zealand. And you mentioned travel. I think that's why everyone likes to travel, like, because there's like a different identity. It's not just the same.
Yeah,
That's why it's made fun of, though I have been myself, of people who are real stoked to go to Australia or like have only been to Australia. And I'm like,
terrible.
dude,
yeah.
there's like so much
rough.
to see in the world, and you go to Australia, which is like very similar to New Zealand.
95%.
Yeah. But I suppose if it's the only place you've been, it is like, if you've got nothing else to compare it to, it's very different. But maybe those people just need a bit more of a broader perspective. Watch some more nature documentaries or like documentaries in other countries.
Well, I was gonna say
I like to roast them anyway.
with traveling, like it's pretty easy now to have access, at least to see in, let's say, Google Maps, or even just photos of, what would you call them, landmarks around the world, so like the Eiffel Tower and Grand Canyon, etc. Like we have access to images and videos and Google Earth. I remember when that came out, and just like playing around, and you'd be like, wow, and then you turn into 3D mode, you like fly over with the skyscrapers. So like you can see any part of the world, and probably now with VR, I haven't had that experience, but with VR, and but like it doesn't matter, like you still want to travel. Like, it's like, it comes down to it. There's nothing the same as hopping on a plane or a cruise or whatever and actually getting out there and experiencing it for yourself.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I can get kind of pessimistic just thinking about like the McDonald's is a classic, like so worldwide. There's a McDonald's like in most countries, and I feel like the trajectory is more companies like that, whereas like maybe we'll inevitably have like Walmarts will just outcompete the warehouses, and then there'll be Walmarts.
Wow. That's
and
just
like
part of
people
capitalism too, though.
Yeah. People would go to Australia and they're like, I love shopping at, like, they go shopping is like just another warehouse. It's like the warehouse, but it's called something else.
It's an Australian version.
Target
like
or
Maya
something.
Going to like the outlet stores or
I just feel like it's a waste of life. It just depresses me.
No, that's fair.
But it's just my opinion. Some people, thrilled by it.
I don't think, like, there's different ways to travel. So let's say if you take sitting on a beach and just relaxing and not having to think about the struggles of the world or what's going on in your life. And then there's like adventurous travel where you'd be like getting out there and walking around and seeing as much as you can. I think there's probably a need for both in a way. But then you can also have that in your own mundane, like your routine in life. So I went through a phase of, this is probably another segue, went through a phase of, I guess, wanting to fill up your calendar as much as possible and always be doing something, and otherwise I felt like I was getting nothing done, no purpose. But then it became more like, I actually prefer, and I guess finding out about myself is I prefer to have like a more routine structure of, work and family, etc. And it was like a change of perspective that brought that up for me. So in that sense, I still want to travel, but then I like, unless you're a YouTuber whose purpose is to travel, it's not possible to be doing it all the time. So it makes it like looking for you book something, having the time and actually leading up to it, it makes you value it more.
Yeah,
it's just for me.
I agree. I hate to bring it up as well, but if this is an episode where we're kind of just being ourselves and just going with the flow, is this bad advice? If you don't have the money or necessarily the time to go traveling as much as you want, take another kind of trip. David will know. You guys know what I'm talking about. Do some drugs. It feels like you go somewhere different. And in many respects, it's very similar. And I hate that I bring it up so much, but I just, at the moment, at this point in my life, I find them very fascinating. And It really feels like you learn. Like, I think that the point, maybe one of the points you're making is like doing something new, learning something new or experiencing something new is very refreshing, and that can be a way to make your everyday a bit more exciting. Yeah.
Okay.
It's served my that thing
Yeah.
of thinking served my life at least reasonably well so far.
Yeah. I mean,
You instantly think of abuse in that respect, but what do you think about that?
I don't think it's for everyone. Like, if you're not actively like seeking it, is there a point? Like, it depends at what your stage of life. Like, I don't know. It's probably more likely if we're talking to a younger demographic of uni students or whatever, who early 20s or let's not put a cap on it, but it's not as easy to say to 30, 40-year-old children.
Yeah. I know, man. It's definitely not for everyone.
Why don't you go on another trip?
Yeah, go on a different kind of trip. There are like 100 great not great walks, but 100 like beautiful nature walks, like within an hour's drive that you can do.
Better advice. not that I have any objection. I'd happily would not trip.
It's not generic advice for everyone.
Do other drug experiences, but better advice for someone who's seeking a travel adventure or whatever, but just like within New Zealand.
Yeah, well, like we said, like living in Christchurch makes it kind of hard to appreciate it. But
I mean, if you think about it, well, I can speak for myself, but I've probably explored less than 10% of New Zealand.
Yeah, probably about the same. Even I don't know.
Yeah, probably even less in my case as well. I say that would be at most 10% of New Zealand. And obviously it still costs money. And accommodation and stuff can be equally as expensive, if not more expensive. But it's more accessible in the fact that you don't have to get on a plane and stuff like that. So, and you're within reason. You can go camping like we did for nearly no money. So it's maybe go explore New Zealand, because there's a lot of it that you probably haven't, and myself included, haven't explored.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, if I'm thinking about going overseas, going on a holiday, sorry, I should say, my first thought is overseas. Although we have so much of our own backyard that we could see, it's like I think maybe for me, it's like, it's purely like a cost benefit ratio. Like, you can travel around, I guess, drive around length of South Island to the North Island and stop in certain places, but also you could fly across the world however 1,000 miles to a new place, and it's like, I feel like you're getting more value for money. So I guess, should New Zealand tourism be also focused on like
domestic?
Locals? Domestic.
Yeah, that was the
like
talk.
Hamner Springs, for example. It's one of those things to the people who have been there or are close to Christchurch. It's only 90 minutes away by car. Like, beautiful place, like beautiful facilities. But at the same time, it's like, there should be like a locals discount to entice more people.
Yes.
To go. Because I think let's go to Hamner. It's, who wants to pay, like, I don't even know what it is now. It could be like $35 for an adult to go in.
Yeah. No, that's a great idea. Other countries had it. I've been to India and they had like local discounts. I suppose the disposable income level from tourists versus the local Indians is vast. It's like orders of magnitude different. But so their price is like $3 to get an admission, and Westerners pay like $20. Like, it's a massive difference.
Yeah,
but $20 is regular for us. It's all relative.
True.
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know anywhere in New Zealand. Oh, the new hot pools in Christchurch do that for locals, like very local. If you're a Christchurch resident, you get a discount. But that seems like a no-brainer, really. No.
But I guess the other argument is, if they can afford to be doing it and still run their business, why wouldn't they do it? It's like, you would think, in theory, like a bottle of milk for a country that produces so much milk would be I'd say next to nothing, but cheap in relative terms. But then I think we're one of the highest the countries that pay quite a lot for our milk, even though we produce it here.
Yeah, Yeah, is that
and butter
why?
and steak, like
Do you-
those sort of things.
Do you guys have any understanding of why that is?
I think it's purely just that if they can make more money shipping it across the world
Hmm.
or to other markets, why
They must be making.
wouldn't you?
I suppose they're shipping it in massive bulk orders. So I was going to say they must be making heaps more to justify the cost of the shipping and the storage and the deliveries, rather than just delivering it straight to like local. Like it must be way more valuable for them to justify doing it. But I suppose they're just bulk shipping out.
Oh
butter
yeah, it'd be like containers and containers worth.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that I guess, unless you have government regulation or like government step in, it's not going to change.
Mm.
So I don't know. If I was running a business, I totally. Why wouldn't you be, for the most part, out for profit? But then I guess if you can run a sustainable model that's good for locals, but also good for your own profits, I think there's benefit.
Yeah,
that.
it definitely seems the cost of living's in the news a lot last few months and since COVID really, but it's still definitely livable. Like it's still all right. It's not. I know in America some of the like the minimum wage stats versus like a cheap rental seems like impossible, like on the surface. So I'm sure it's not that impossible, not as impossible as it sounds, but it's definitely way more dire than here. Having to work like literally 2 jobs if you're on minimum wage to just afford rent and food. But no, it seems to be all right here, at least for the meantime. I was going to say something else. Damn, I forgot.
I guess it depends who you talk to, though. I think there was an article that was out on Stuff, or was it one of the news articles? It was featuring, I think, 10 local New Zealanders around the country who were experiencing like hardship with the cost of living. It was different walks of life. I think one was a liquor store owner who'd been ram-raided 3 times within a year. You've got a student, or there's one mum with 3 kids, and talking about like what they received and think how much they were paying for like renting and etc. etc. So yeah, everyone's going through different things, but I for the most part I probably would agree with you.
I remember what I was going to say, but the extra point I was going to make was I think we might have lived through what could be the peak like abundance and cheapness of like the widest variety of goods. I feel like mid 2000s, late 2000s were like in terms of food and cost of living, like the options are so cheap. It felt like it had never been cheaper, you know. But like comparing, I'm thinking about my parents talking about they remember when the first Chinese restaurants were opened up in New Zealand, like just the amount of abundance and the cheapness of food, and it's gone up since COVID, but due to probably like money printing reasons. But I think people, myself included, get real used to, it's just the classic getting real used to your standard of living and then being like, oh, I can't afford anything anymore, and meanwhile you're buying like $100 worth of weed a week and you're smoking cigarettes and you got Netflix and blah blah blah.
Yeah, I think if you're talking about food, for example, and this might not be the best example, but remember in high school you'd have like the value options at, say, Macca's, where you could get like an apple pie for $1, or like a chicken cheeseburger was like $2.
Yeah.
And now I just think even there's like the value options that they have are just, they're not like not really valuable.
Has minimum wage gone up in relation to that, do you think? We could work it out.
It's gone up heaps since high school.
More than the
it's
ratio of the
insane.
value. It's probably about the same as the
Yeah,
dollar,
I mean, maybe
the
just
cheap
think
food, fast food.
It seemed like your money was going further back then than it is now.
Minimum
even though
wage
you're
was
earning more.
probably like $12 something when we were at high school.
True, it's almost doubled. But
Now
mind
it's
you,
like 20. Yeah, is it even like 22 something now?
so it's about double anyway. But so is the dollar menus. It's about double.
For context,
slightly more.
my first job, which was in retail, which I had, first wage I was getting was $13.50 an hour, and that was in 2010. So yeah, 13 years ago. Yeah, I mean, you obviously have to calculate for like inflation and what the money's worth back then to what it is now. But even, I guess, with every increase that goes up in minimum wage, obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously, but you do notice prices will change in like food restaurants. Even I think electronics seem to be more expensive now. Yeah, it just doesn't seem like your money goes as far. So then I guess you can still get by, and then you might have to make certain sacrifices, cut this out, or
Live off pasta.
Yeah. One aspect of inflation I only just recently clicked or learned about that made sense was COVID's kind of a unique example because it was the extra money that was all printed or typed into the computer a lot of it was given out directly to people in the form of the what were they called?
Stimulus.
Yeah. But in general with inflation, and it's still what happened with COVID, the new money that's printed, it's not like instantly dispersed like that, or definitely not to that level to the common people, the people that get the first access to the new money before the market has time to adjust and inflate prices. It's like all the people with all the money anyway, and all the people in the banking and the high ups. So they get all this extra money. The prices haven't responded yet to the new influx of printed money. So it's in their interest, the people who control the money flow, not exactly that one person's interest, but that their immediate surrounding people.
No, I don't think that's how it works.
Do you not think?
Well, because you can't buy everything at once. So
but it takes a bit for the new money for the market to respond to the new
prices to go up.
Yeah,
but you can't like go to the supermarket and buy a year's worth of food while things are still cheap, can you?
No, but it'd be like house prices, like people with massive have access to all that.
Assets, yes.
Yeah.
Relevant
to
assets.
Yeah, you can buy house prices before they start to catch up to the inflated money supply.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it
I
comes
don't know
down...
who exactly gets it, but it's definitely not going to be us on wages that get the
Well, it could have
new
been.
money.
It could have been. You could have bought a house. I could have bought a house if I had the benefit of hindsight. Anyone could have. There was no lending restrictions at that point in time.
Yeah.
So anyone can do it. Almost anyone can do it because the banks would have certainly would have lent to me.
Well, obviously, in hindsight, it would have been perfect to buy
Yes.
right at the time. Price up, was it late 2019 when the peak started to go up exponentially, and then sell out, and then you could just be sitting on money or cash while prices seem to be decreasing. But I think with what was going on with COVID and stimulus, it was, I guess you could say, no one knew what was going to happen with COVID, and so the idea was there was going to be a time where people would be spending less, like not going out. So the whole point of the stimulus at that time was to encourage people to spend. And so everyone who was receiving it, I guess it comes down to like financial literacy. I think I received the payment when we were getting paid at my job. I didn't spend anything. To me, it was like a month of, I guess, not having to work. I'm not going out. I'm not buying any like food takeaways because none of these places are open.
That was a great time.
Yeah, at the time here,
For me,
like
personally.
you could only buy essential items, what was deemed essential by the government. So I was just like, oh yes, this is extra money for me. I was a lot poorer back then, so it's a bit different. If I received $1,000 here, well, I don't know what I would do at this point in time. But to encourage people to spend more, and I think there are just people out there wasting it on crap.
It's what people do. It's like when people get tax returns.
Yeah.
They don't think of it as that was money that I never should have paid. They think of it as it's a gift of money. And then they go out, I got a tax return, so I'll go for a trip to Bali.
Yeah, which is marketed, or it was before it was real easy to do yourself through ID directly. Those third-party ones marketed it real well.
Yeah.
Whereas like just one click, and it's like people on holidays and stuff.
Yeah. But then, it's easy to say now in hindsight, like at the time I think, let's say, that's when I started, I guess, investing, or more people had opportunity to understand what investing was, because the economy or the stock market had pretty much took a nosedive, and then we had like a V-shaped economy, especially in the US anyway. It was like a V-shaped economy where people thought stocks can only go up, right? But in reality, when you were borrowing all this money and injecting it into the market, well, of course asset prices are going to increase, because people have more money to spend on these things. And if you have, I guess, if it's finite or there's only so much supply, well, what happens when there's less supply? Demand goes, it's simple supply and demand. And so it's easy to say now, like when we're going through this inflationary crisis, I guess, I should have done this differently.
Yeah.
But
I like my neighbor, my Romanian neighbor, said she came over a few weeks ago and she said, I forget exactly how she said it, but she's like this inflation, it's all bullshit. Like I'm not feeling it at all. Like my life has never been better. And I was like, yeah, I'm the same. I'm the same. So I agree. I don't disagree. Obviously there are people out there struggling, but yeah, for me personally, I barely feel it at all. Obviously that's somewhat because I live with my parents, so it's sheltered, so it's not the real world. But yeah, my neighbours, they have their house paid off, the married couple. So like I said, they've never been earning more. Like the quality of life has never been better. They don't notice inflation at all. They're talking about buying a new car, and I'm like, well, yeah, I completely agree with you, and especially considering I've got a large portion of money sitting in the bank, earning interest rates that have never been better in my lifetime. So yeah, these things, there's winners and losers.
I was going to say, that's exactly the thought I had just pop up. There's always going to be winners and losers. In some regards, people will want house prices to drop so they can enter into the housing market. But then on the other hand, you would have had people who had FOMO, who would have leveraged themselves to the max, who I think, as I heard, maybe even close to 50% of money in lending and mortgages still hasn't refixed. And so like there will still be a squeeze.
There's a lag.
There's going to be a lag. Yeah. And so there will be winners and there will be losers. But I think from what we've seen in hindsight, like markets are always cyclical.
Yeah.
So then again, it's not to say, and it's a cliche, past performance doesn't equal future returns, but
it could be heading into a lost decade, as they call it, where
like Japan,
shit just goes down. Yeah, because we're so used
for a whole decade.
Things like Japan has still not reached. I think its stock market peaked in either the 80s or the 90s, and it's never reached its peak again. So, yeah, and a lost decade would be like the 1930s, where from 1929 to late 1930s. The stock market just went down or went down to a certain extent and then took ages to go back up. So, yeah, who knows? It's one of the things. No one. It's just that's why you trade instead of invest, and then you just play the tape. At the moment, the market's looking somewhat improved. So, but it can turn in an instant. But if you're managing risk, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. So. The market is. What's the example I remember reading in a book? It's like people will see when things are going down as fear, like, oh my gosh, things are going to drop, we should sell it. But there's the whole buy low, sell high. But I think you notice more people sell at lows because there's more fear that it's going to drop even lower.
It's a very emotional thing.
It's a huge, exactly. It's an emotional thing.
Yeah, if you didn't know anything about it, you wouldn't assume. You'd think, oh, it's all maths and numbers and computers doing everything.
But
people's emotions get in
from
the way.
People who have, I guess, who have participated in it for a long period of time, know that there's always going to be drops and increases, and it's not rational is the right word. It's not the market's never rational. You could have a company put out stellar numbers in their earnings report, and the stock will still drop the next day. Like you just don't know, but. It's the whole like time in the market thing, not timing the market. Unless you're a trader, which
you don't give a crap.
Yeah.
You don't give a frick.
Just trade the technicals.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the fundamentals. I still think, well, my inflationary advice is there's stuff that doesn't really get affected by inflation, like how much has the price of has pasta gone up in the past 10 years? You can still get you can even get the instant packets, which work out more expensive. You get the San Remo instant packs for 99 cents. Maybe they were 50 cents 10 years ago, but like you get what I mean. Like it's not really a big difference, is it? And then you can buy like the proper non-instant bags of pasta like
Yeah.
a kg for like a couple of bucks. Same with rice.
Yeah, I agree. I remember.
You don't, if you're eating salmon and stuff like that, you're gonna feel the bite of inflation. But if you just potatoes, like there's so much cheap stuff out there. Crumpets is my go-to.
I think it's people getting used
to
to their standard of living, eh? And they go, well, now I have to substitute my salmon for potatoes. I'm feeling the pinch.
Yeah. So just, I don't know. I guess I'm lucky in that I don't have an exotic taste and diet.
Yeah, it's definitely like apparent, and I know like partner in retail, like their wages definitely haven't gone up.
Yeah, it doesn't keep up.
And just like in a 2 or 3 year, like with the inflation that we've experienced now, definitely hasn't gone up in lockstep with inflation. I think I can understand how people who are maybe already on, if you're already on the pastas and stuff, then you'd be feeling it. If you're already like, I just want to say about the do you agree? This makes sense. I heard it. Tell me if this is logical. That like nature of capitalism is to make things cheaper and more efficient. So like the price of pasta, just capitalism incentivizes you to make pasta cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, more like massive scale and more effective, and inflation counteracts that. So maybe inflation's just going up faster than the price that the products can naturally through capitalism go down, and now we're noticing it. Usually it's kind of about the same, maybe it.
Yeah, I think that could be correct.
Yeah, like without any inflation, pasta might be, it'd be like 10 cents now.
Yeah.
But inflation kind of.
Yeah, well, you need
like
a little bit of inflation. It's just when it gets too out of hand. I get the gist of it. I can't explain it well, but because like a little bit of inflation, raises asset prices, which is over the long course for asset owners, which most people eventually will be. It's beneficial. It's beneficial that your house goes up in price. It's just that you don't want everything to go up so rapidly that it gets out of sync. As I say, it's not. I get the gist of it. I can't explain that perfectly, but it makes sense in my head that a little bit of inflation is good because it essentially creates wealth.
Because what could we imagine what it would look like if there was no inflation, just let capitalism go, and so like a Bitcoin kind of same level of monetary money in the economy, and capitalism makes everything slightly cheaper. I don't know enough about the economics to know what would happen.
I guess it depends on the product that is being made, because
I think it applies to everything.
Yeah, but like I think you do need a bit of
materials get cheaper.
Yeah, I mean it depends what it is, but like if it's like food being produced, if it becomes to the point where it's so cheap, like you'd probably have to be producing more of it, otherwise it might get to a point where it's really not viable anymore. And then that's where I think, if you're running a business and then if you look at like the life cycle of a business model where you have like growth and then stagnates, dips, and then eventually levels out, you just put your money elsewhere, or then it also incentivizes progress, or new industries like space, for example, space exploration, one that never existed. Well, I guess you could say there's NASA. Anyway, point being, like there's going to be new innovations that money will pour into, but if it becomes too like cheap, it's good for the consumer, but then is it good for the business? Or
well, the nature of capitalism, they just wouldn't. It's pretty ruthless in that it just kick out any businesses that aren't. So it leaves the ones that are left, and I suppose the ones that can do it at the biggest scale.
Yeah, well, like Amazon, for example, could probably easily absorb or price out competitors. There's in the business that I'm working in, there's a retailer in Australia that competes with the ones that we supply to, who could easily price out and sell certain things at a loss just to take market share to a point, and then could easily raise their prices. Same things happen with pharmacies here, like with Chemist Warehouse in Australia, and then you've got
massive department stores.
Yeah, they're dropping or having $0 prescriptions. It will entice people to pull away from like the smaller pharmacies or small owned ones, because a lot of people are just driven by price and make the move easy. There might be people that are loyal, like you go to the same. You generally would go to like the same GP, or not everybody, but like if I had a good relationship with a doctor, I wouldn't easily want to like change, because they would know your family history, etc. But if it's like business, well, most consumers just driven by price. So
what's that like? We've talked about this as a callback. We've talked about this before, but like, what's like the end game of that process where like large corporations can just price out smaller ones? Doesn't that just mean they'll be like,
there isn't
oh yeah, what did you have to say?
Yeah, because there's a misconception because people say, oh, monopolies, and it's unfair. But as long as it's not a monopoly by regulation,
right? So it requires something outside of capitalism.
Yeah, because essentially what that means is like, if we think of Amazon, just means that they're providing such a good deal for the consumer, and then that everyone is priced out, and they say, oh, and then as soon as everyone else goes out of business, they can just double their prices. But no, as long as there's not a regulation that doesn't allow other businesses to restart up, because if prices start going up, other businesses come back and they say, the price has gone up, now we can come back and compete. We can, So as long as there's not a regulation that bans other businesses from starting up and selling the same products if Amazon were to increase their prices, then right. It will always, the market will iron itself out. As soon as prices go up, people see an opportunity to make money, and then that brings prices back down.
That makes sense.
So the only way it doesn't work is if you have like a government monopoly, where a government, like I used the example of like Sky City, where they can be the only casino that can run in Auckland for like the next decade or something.
That's kind of dangerous.
Yes, that will probably come with like a lot of strings attached, so that they can't really like the social license, where they have to keep eyes on people gambling and stuff like that. So it won't necessarily get out of control, because it'll be a highly regulated industry. But if the government said that Foodstuffs is the only supermarket that's allowed to sell food products in New Zealand for the next decade, then that would be problematic. If it didn't come with, they can only cap their prices. So, and you will find examples of that around the world, where there will be like crazy monopolies like that. Maybe, I can't think of
it. Pharmaceuticals, possibly. Is that a good like certain medications, if they're produced and you have the patent?
Yeah, patents, I think that's messy. I think there's only like a lifespan on a patent, and then the company that makes a drug for the first time is allowed to be the only ones that can make it for like 20 or 30 years, and then once that expires, everyone can start making it. I don't know. I believe that's what I've heard.
Like copyrights last for only like 50 years or something.
Okay, right. I think I remember hearing that. Something to do, if I remember. Yeah, I think you're right.
I heard that, but that surely can't be right, because like Disney and like Mickey Mouse is all like expired then, like well and truly expired in that case.
Yeah, I don't know. No, I was thinking maybe an example would be like the Aramco, which is the Saudi Arabian oil company, because I think like the government runs it, so it's like a government monopoly. So it'd be there will be like examples that you can look around. It would probably be like a government owned monopoly. It won't be a private company. It'll be a government owns a business, and they've created a monopoly for themselves.
Yeah, that's true. That makes full sense. That puts my mind at ease, I suppose.
Yes.
But I suppose thinking about it like in a opinionated, aesthetic way, is like, is that a cool future? When you have like one like maybe one supermarket where it's just like they don't raise prices, but it's just aesthetically you have one place for food. You don't go to choose between Fijiland and
I think there'll always be alternatives on a small scale, because that's it. There'll always be people who are looking for the experience rather than a bottom dollar. So
that's true.
Like
and
that
there are
supermarket
products
that started out here recently that I mentioned, where I think
Costco.
No, it's one where you can invest in it and you get a lifetime discount. I forget if it's vegan or if it's just I think it's a vegan supermarket.
Mm.
So they're focused on sustainability, whatever, vegan, and yeah, there will always be.
There are certain products. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I don't. I'm trying to think of
I've had ads that have popped up.
Yeah.
I think for I can't remember what it's called.
of a real world example. I can't, maybe like a crappy old like bookstore or something, secondhand bookstore.
Well, that's kind of what I was going to say. I was like, there are products like secondhand books. Microgreens, another one where it doesn't really lend itself to like massive, at huge scale corporate businesses. Because like, I mean, with the microgreens example, they have like a real short shelf life. So when it's like a massive operation like that, you're adding like days onto like getting it into the store.
Yeah.
Whereas, like that's always going to be more favorable to like growing it and then taking it directly to a local like place right on the shelf. And yeah, like you said, secondhand books, like you can't really Amazon secondhand books. It's always going to be like a small dingy.
Well, yeah,
You could.
You could.
You could. It's just more.
True, you totally could actually.
Yeah.
It's about places that people go to for the experience rather than for a great deal.
Yeah, well, like a farmer's market might be possibly an example.
Yeah, but I think farmers markets tend to do be cheaper than supermarkets anyway.
Well, what about that secondhand book, that business that you noticed was for sale? And the problem being that, it was a lady or two ladies who go around like garage sales and op shops and they collect secondhand books and then sell it.
It's a hustle, not a business.
Yeah, it's like you can't scale it.
Like a method. Yeah,
yeah,
you can't scale it, and not everyone can do that because a business is where you have a book supplier, and then it's like a repetitive process that requires that you can find the garage sales and it's somewhat luck of the draw.
Yes. So that you couldn't, in that respect.
Yeah, well, it'd be like
finding gems of people.
Or buying, what do they call them? Like expired storage units. Like some people do it as a hustle, right? Yeah. You might strike gold and find something in there, but
it's basically
you can't rely on
isn't
that
it?
as like an income if you're not.
I'm just trying to think like of a good example of like a business that's not really efficient but still exists because it's more about the experience rather than maybe I went there today. What is it? The Allison Movie Land or whatever.
Yeah.
Like they have all those DVDs. DVDs aren't really a thing, but it's very niche, isn't it?
Yes.
It's not. You can buy or watch movies on Netflix or whatever for cheaper, but it's very small, and it only works on a small scale because there's only a small audience of people. But they're going there. Like my sister was real into it more than I am. But
I've been to a few movies there.
I
quite like the experience.
And well, that's it. They do have movies as well, like the cinemas. But they have a whole bunch of DVDs that you can rent. Which is
Mm.
that's a dead business model. But on a super small scale, like they have it, there's a small audience of hardcore fans who are happy. I think it was 3 movies, 3 DVDs for a week for $15. Like that's a terrible deal. But it's a terrible deal. But there's a small group of people who, because my sister, she loves the physical and like the covers and stuff like that. So it's the experience.
I think also they tend to have like a range of movies that you would be a lot harder to pirate. Let's put it that way.
Oh, going back all the way back to the beginning with brands, like one thing that can't be put onto a mass scale is like personableness. You know what I mean? Like the person to person thing.
Yeah.
You can't mass produce that. Like we mentioned with Lucas with the mass produced self help. It's like it needs to be. It's never going to affect you as well as someone talking directly to like a mentor can and tailor it exactly to your life.
And I'm thinking I'm just tied back with food. They're not really supermarkets, but are you aware of one of them's called like Good For? It's
So
it's,
ones that no, maybe not.
They're their focus is, I think, is like sustainability, healthy food. So they are like a supermarket, but very small scale. Another one, they just changed their name recently, but it's changed to, I think, Nourish and Thrive. I forget what it was called before that. But they're I think they're based in what's that place near Riccarton? That's not Riccarton, that block of shops.
Bushin.
Yeah, Bushin. They're based in Bushin. So it's like a mini supermarket, a bakery in a way, like Coupland's is sort of like a mini supermarket in a way, isn't it? Like it's mainly like wheat products. It's not but it's a mini supermarket in a way, isn't it? Like you could live off.
You could, yeah.
It would be limited. Your food. You're not going to buy salmon, but you're going to buy bread and buns,
bread, milk, cookies,
milk,
pies.
So that's what I mean. Those places, I think, will always exist because people aren't necessarily going there for bang for buck. It's going there for something, a little bit different. Maybe not the experience as such in those cases. I think in those two former examples, the Good For and Nourish and Thrive, I think they're targeting themselves. I can just imagine their target audience. It'd be the soccer mom. It'd be the 40-year-old stay-at-home mom who's super eco-conscious, health-conscious, and they won't be the cheapest, and certainly they're not the cheapest, but it's all sustainably packaged, organic, probably a lot of it, and
true.
It's targeting to a very specific audience who's not going there to get the cheapest seeds and the cheapest nut butters or whatever, and they're going there for the sort of the highest quality and something that has a nice story, guilt-free story. It's not done by child labor, and it's a biodegradable bag and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it might be a fallacy from my thinking, where I'm like, oh, it's what's stopping like the nature of capitalism just in one big like an aesthetically ugly like huge department store that you just go to for everything. It's like grey and everything's sterile. That's assuming even that everyone has the same interest in likes and products that I do. So I'm thinking of a department store where there's things that I want to buy that are like that maybe are sustainably packaged or whatever, but some people don't care about that. Some people are way more hardcore than me. So there's going to be always room for little niches.
I think that's a good point. Like you use the example of Alice in Movieland here. You could easily watch stuff on Netflix, or you watch it in the comfort of your own home. Or
most people prefer that. Most people are like, of course.
But then for me, like that was always a thing I've enjoyed ever since I can remember, is going to the movies and watching, I don't know, this like,
Chicken Run.
So many movies that I've watched in the past, however, 27 years. Well, we're less than that because I wasn't watching from a baby. But point being, like, it's the experience for me.
Yeah.
Like, you could easily get everything delivered to your door from Amazon or whatever, or your groceries from the supermarket. But some people like walking around the physical store and shopping and checking out what the produce is, and
and even if you think on that, it's still a mass scale, but New World compared to even Countdown, and certainly compared to Pack and Save, New World is very it's a bit more upmarket. Everything is laid out a bit more nice. I think they finally stopped doing this at my New World, but probably because of tough times.
New World Prestons.
Yeah, New World Prestons. They used to have someone who greets you at the door. And I was like, this is such like the most useless employee like role. Paying someone to greet you at the door.
Damn.
They finally stopped that, probably because like tough economic times.
That's an easy cut.
Yeah, such an easy cut. But that's an example where like you would never get that at Countdown. Certainly wouldn't get that at Pack and Save. And so it's just a nice touch. I didn't really care for it.
Or even your bags packed for you. Like every checkout would have someone packing the bags.
Yeah, and New World, it's much more sort of crafty than Countdown. I went last night and I was looking at coffee, and there's just way larger variety of coffees than you get from Countdown. There's just so many more different types of coffee. And like the bakery at New World, I think Pop's a bit more. Pop's a bit more than the bakery at Countdown. So they're a bit a little bit crafty. As I say, they're still a mass supermarket, but New World is definitely a bit more of an upmarket experience than Countdown, and certainly obviously Pack and Save.
Certainly, yeah. I suppose there's the key to fight against the depressing, aesthetically ugly, massive department store potential future, probably not going to happen, is keep being different and diversify.
You've got to have an
be
edge
random
over your competition. Like Riverside Market, for example, as well. Like you're paying a lot more generally for your produce and whatever you buy if you're buying fish from the stores there. But it's like an experience. Like you're going through, checking out the stalls, seeing what they've got. I personally wouldn't, but I understand why people would. even Fresh Choice, the one near Intex. I don't know if you've been there.
I think I haven't been in
Yeah,
there,
it's
yes.
like small. It's like a small boutique supermarket.
Mm.
Like it's got that almost like European feel to it. You go in there and you'll have no, I definitely noticed in one supermarket when I visited in Canada, like they've got a full cafe like in the supermarket.
Yeah.
You'll have like different
New World has a cafe, or at least the one in Preston's does. I don't know if it's on all, but they've got a cafe in there as well.
I would never go to a cafe in a supermarket, like, but then at the same time, like, that's kind of a niche thing, you know, like, oh yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I wonder how much the people that do shop at New World and enjoy New World prefer it, at least over like Pack and Save, do it just purely I wonder how much of just the brand affects it rather than the actual experience itself, like the knowledge that I shop at New World, so I'm better than everyone. I wonder how, like, it's definitely, it's just a matter of scale.
Well,
yeah.
there's
Everyone's going to care about
that. Of MILFs relative to the average population at New and Preston is significantly higher than the average population. It's that classic. Yeah, there's a lot.
It's like rich. It's like rich people just seemingly generally more hot. Like when they're rich.
I don't know if this is a good way, but like if you went to a supermarket, like a car park, I should say, at the supermarket, you're probably likely to find upmarket cars in the New World car park than you would at Countdown or Pack and Save.
Yeah. There could be a good man on the street. We could do New World, Countdown, and Pack and Save, and ask the same question.
I went to Countdown today at the Palms, and there's two like scumbags sitting. Do you know like the bit we go through those little things at the entrance? Those
like those little
bars.
Springs.
Yeah.
Spring
it was
bars.
like just
Kids?
two. Yeah, they look probably teenagers, but they look like absolute scumbags just hanging out there. It's like, why are you like hanging out here like at the entrance of a supermarket? Like they're sitting on like a, I don't know. It's like,
just enjoy the attention.
it's like, yeah, why are you hanging out at the entrance of a supermarket? Like, go sit in the food court or something. But yeah,
silly kids. I have to wrap up soon, so maybe final thoughts.
Oh, I don't know. We've kind of gone over.
Yeah, well, that was going to be an open-ended conversation.
Exactly how I wanted it to
Yeah.
turn out. Yeah.
No, I think we should perhaps do this often.
Yeah,
Not
once
all the time.
I think once a month makes sense.
But
in a while.
it's nice to just
No
talk
pressure.
about random things, I guess.
Yeah.
Nice for us,
Yeah, for us
at
anyway.
least.
Yeah, well, it's like when Joe Rogan, he does the fight companions, where
Yeah.
it just it's like him and Brian Callen and what's that, Brendan
Shanahan. No,
Mm.
no. I know who you're talking
Yeah,
about. Yeah,
Brendan-
Schaub.
there's a
Brendan
market for it.
Schaub, and they're not. Well, to be fair, Joe Rogan doesn't necessarily have specific topics, but when it's a certain guest, you know it's roughly going to be like science with Neil deGrasse Tyson. When it's the fight companion, it's just them like kicking back, having a few whiskey, cigars, watching the UFC, talking shit. So yeah,
If there's a market for them, all for it. It's not like the other ones I skip. There'll be
No,
people.
yeah,
to be fair, I skip those as well, but that's just because I don't really like those guys. I can't stand Brendan Schaub, Brian Callen. He's grown on me a little bit, but it's still like if it was Eddie Bravo, like I'd be down. If it was just if it was like Alex Jones and Eddie Bravo fight companion, I'd listen to that
is the
because I
king,
like them. Yeah.
All right, cool.
I think it just makes takes pressure off for us to just kick back and have a yarn, like our origin story. I
It
guess.
is kind of relaxing on the brain. Like we just have regular ass brains, man. We're relatively relatively regular brains, and we try our mental best to like talk about these topics that we have been to the best of our ability, as smart as we possibly can, as eloquently as we can. But this is much nicer and more relaxing.
I guess it boils down to I feel sometimes like I'm no expert in what I'm talking about. Why am I talking about this? But at least in this format, it's like doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think every regular ass brain should be at least trying to figure out inflation and stuff, because it affects you. Like you got to at least. I think it's your responsibility to at least try and have rough understanding of it, because otherwise you're gonna. We're gonna vote ourselves into oblivion. We're like, oh, free money again, sick, more free money.
Do you want the red pill or do you want the blue pill?
Yeah, I'm trying to read. You should always be trying
should there
to
be
read
a purple pill, like a mixture of both?
Yeah, as I say, obviously it doesn't work for stuff like rent, mortgages, but when it comes to food, I think you can still control inflation relatively well if you need to. Yeah, just to say, stick to stuff like rice, potatoes, oats. I've named all these on another episode.
But you're talking coming at it from middle class. What if you're already on rice and oats?
Yeah,
I think that's the
That's
at least the angle that's stuff. Yeah, educate yourself. Yeah, I think that's at least what the stuff articles want us to think is happening to like a lot of people. And it's probably a bit exaggerated. There's probably not that many people who are tipping over the edge, but it's definitely more with inflation comes. It's going to be more.
Yeah, I think it's middle class people who are teetering on a luxury life that are the most affected. Sort of saying that within my own family, they're all middle class and they're sort of teetering on like I guess upper middle class. It's certainly not a millionaire lifestyle, but they're teetering on that, and now it's like, oh, actually we have to come right back into the middle.
Yeah, it feels like you're losing ground.
I
wonder if that happens
every
time there's an economic cycle at the top. Like we've obviously experienced, like I said, a real good. It seemed real cheap, like pre-COVID, and now every time there's always downturns. Like you said, it's cyclic. I wonder if at this time in the cycle, everyone's always like cost of living, and it always ends up. Well, it doesn't end up fine.
I think everyone was getting rich before, not again an exaggeration, but a lot of normal people are getting rich, especially in America more so than here before the 2008 recession. There was a lot of people getting wealthy back then. Who probably were just getting lucky.
I think you definitely notice
gotta be empathetic.
The luxury things. They tend to go first, like.
Well, like the Dupe stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, as an example too, like I occasionally like to go out for brunch or something with my wife. Yes, you're spending maybe $60 when you go, and you could step back and not do that. Like, but then you also want to live life in some ways, and to be fair, like most times I have gone out for brunch. I don't do it every week, but these places are still busy. Like,
that's what I'm. Yeah. So
it's like
they're certainly grossly exaggerated, but still...
you kind of want a middle ground too, because if people stop going to restaurants to go out for dinner, well then you're going to start seeing jobs disappear.
Well, that's what they raised the OCR, right? Isn't it? Because they were intending people to be discouraged from spending and going out, but when people just keep spending, they have to keep raising it. Yeah.
That's another well.
Yeah.
We could just keep talking.
I've got to go take my mum on a date.
Nice. Well, hope it goes well for you.
Cool. Yeah.
But we'll wrap it up there for this week.
Yep.
Thanks to those who have supported us to this day and still continue to support us. You can find us on the usual YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, Twitter, and
starting to pump out some clips.
Yeah, that's
hopefully more regularly.
We want to work on is just getting more content out because it's good for us to learn.
Yeah,
and improve.
Yeah, and it's way easier of an ask to ask people or to expect people to watch shorts. Not everyone. Most people probably don't have time.
And we'd encourage you to interact as well. If you want to leave a comment, question.
Yeah,
we welcome that with open arms.
Yeah, I'd love to be we don't disagree with each other enough, I think, on this pod. So I'd love for any listeners who are like enraged by something I've said, to telling people to do drugs, for example, instead of going on a holiday. Like, tell me why that's like so wrong. But you have to tell me why. They have to make me understand in my rational male brain. Yeah, we've got a couple of guests that lined up in the future, hopefully, which I think would be a welcome difference to our opinion. And also, and also some side topics that we've written down that we might get to eventually. Yeah. But and if anyone's listened this far as well, any recommendations for more like street interview stuff, like locations to do street interview stuff? Any any protests happening or anything interesting or juicy that I think we don't know about? Yeah. I'd be keen. I think we need to make a council trip up to Wellington and try and catch some MPs. Yeah, sure. I'm down. Sweet. All right, we'll wrap it up there anyway. Thanks everyone for listening and watching. Later. We'll see you next time. Bye.